Alright. And we're live. Estamos en vivo. We're live. Nada más un aviso para nuestros amigos que nos escuchan en español. Esta pequeña entrevista y este LoserCast Talks se va a llevar a cabo en inglés. Ya después yo se los traduzco en YouTube. But here we are, without further ado, with the great and powerful Rich Vreeland, also known as Disasterpiece. Hi mate, how are you? Thanks for taking this interview. We are live.
Hey Pablo, I'm doing good. Hanging in there.
In case you don't know, Rich or Disasterpiece, as he's known, it's a musician, electronic musician, and I want to ask you about that because I'm needless to say, I'm a absurd fan of your work. I'm the biggest fan of your work. Seriously, I'm not even even my chat and my followers know that I'm a freaking big fan of yours, and I've always had that question, man. How will you describe your genre? I've read like YouTube videos, like reviews of your music, and some say it's like modal jazz. Some say you have like a taste of Debussy. But I want to hear it for the man itself, for the man himself. How would you describe your genre, your music genre?
I mean, I guess I wouldn't try to describe it because it's influenced by a lot of different things. Like, it's influenced by Debussy and Ravel and Impressionism. It's inspired by modal jazz, Miles Davis.
Nice.
What's that guy's name? Can't remember. Some other jazz guy that I like. Lots of prog rock, minimalism, film music, like Marconi, contemporary music. I mean, some people, if I do a horror score, people say that my music is synthwave or whatever. It just depends on, it's like every project I try to do something that's going to fit the project, and so it kind of takes me all over the place.
Oh, right. I've always heard about modal jazz and minimalism, but hearing it for you, it's amazing, mate. Another thing, I was presenting you, and you're very famous. I mean, I gotta admit, I get to know you via your collaboration with the video game FEZ. Is it your biggest project or just your most famous? How would you describe your work at FEZ?
It's probably, for games, it's probably the most famous one because it's the first project I did that was really successful. Yeah. Like financially, and just a lot of people like seeing it and playing it. And when I did that, I was a couple years out of college. So it was a really big deal for me because as a result of it, I got to work on a lot of other projects after it. I got into film. I got to work on other really great games. So yeah, that's probably how I would. Yeah, it's probably the most important project of my career, or one of them, if not maybe like the second, like, or the top three for sure. Because before that, I was working as a composer and I was doing all kinds of stuff for years. Like, I had been working on stuff for like maybe 7 years doing soundtracks, but it was all small stuff, and nothing really connected. The thing that connected the most was actually my original music that I was writing for fun, and I was performing live.
Oh, right.
And it was mostly chiptune music. Yeah. And progressive rock inspired, like, chiptune stuff. And that's actually how I got to work on FEZ. I did a show in Montreal, and I met the developers of FEZ at the show.
They were fans at your gig.
They were fans of my music before I had that much of a following. So I got really lucky, I would say, for sure.
Oh, right. And I bet you get this question asked a lot, but how was it working with Phil Fish? That it's a very how can I say it?
I would say like
controversial to say the least.
Yeah, I would say probably like half of all the interviews I've ever done, people have asked me about Phil Fish. It was fine. I don't know. I mean, we didn't really have any issues. We had like some minor disagreements about like the album artwork or something like that, but the actual like game was really easy to work on with him. Like I would just write stuff and put it in the game, and everybody liked it. You know, there wasn't a lot of direction. He didn't give me a lot of direction, so I just had a lot of freedom to kind of figure it out on my own. And it was probably one of the easiest projects I've ever worked on, to be honest.
Because it was a really small team, right? It was just like Phil and the programmer, and I think you and how many guys were there involved in this project?
Yeah, there was Phil, there was Renaud, who's a programmer, there was me, and I did all the music, and I did a lot of the ambiences as well, and then Brandon, sound designer. We had a couple of different animators who helped out, and then we had lots of like there was like a publisher, and there were like other people that were involved in other ways, but as far as like development goes, there were pretty much only 4 like core members who were like super involved. Although there was another person involved before I was involved with music, and he and Phil had a falling out.
Right.
And they went on to make some fairly well-known games of their own. I can't think of any of the names of those games right now, but so it was primarily the 4 of us during development.
And this is a question I always wanted to ask you. Do you consider yourself some sort of a gamer? Do you like video games, or it's just a project?
It's a funny question, because I feel like gamer is such a loaded term these days. I mean, I like games. I like good games. I don't like bad games.
Of course.
The games that I think are bad. So, I mean, I'm just I'm someone who likes good entertainment and good media, whether it's games or literature, movies, television, whatever.
Nice.
But I play more games than the average person, probably.
Are you playing anything right now?
I was playing a little bit of Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
Which is fun so far. It's nice to feel like a samurai.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends who I play games with sometimes, and we've been playing all kinds of stuff. Lots of multiplayer games. We played a bit of what the heck is the name of that game? Fall Guys, is that it?
Fall Guys, the one on PS, on PlayStation, or
on PC, where it's like multiplayer and you like race, and there's you have these little goofy characters. Yeah, Fall Guys, Among Us, Worms. We've been playing Worms. We just started playing Stardew Valley, which is a game that I would never play, but it's actually fun with other people. So it's fun to have a game like that that's kind of you don't have to think about it too hard, and you can just like talk and hang out. Yeah, like have a beer and like I don't know, grow some carrots or whatever. It's a good time.
There are some games that you can just like experience, like leisure games. I don't know how to call it, like passive games. Like have you seen Flight Simulator, for example, or all of the simulator games like Farm Simulator, Flight Simulator, Bus Simulator? They're just like leisure games. You don't have to think that much, and I like those games too, man. They're just like passive, like contemplative. I don't know. It's
those games are really popular in Germany.
All right.
Yeah, like Train Simulator and Tractor Trailer Simulator, Euro Truck Simulator, and then someone made a spoof of those games called Goat Simulator. It was really funny.
Yeah, it has a lot of following in YouTube actually, because it's pretty funny, and have a lot of Easter eggs and references to other media and stuff, and it's pretty funny. They're saying in the chat is the Animal Crossing also. It's the epitome of those kind of games. It's an amazing game, but it can get pretty stale sometimes. But when you're with people, it's absolutely super fun.
Yeah, it's exactly. I feel like that's a similar kind of game where I tried to play it by myself, and I just felt like I was having an existential crisis. Yeah. Like, what am I doing with my life playing this game? I should be doing something else. Which is kind of the way I feel when I play The Sims. But if you're playing with other people, then it's like a social activity, and that totally changes the way that I feel about it.
More in the times like today, like we are in a pandemic, we're at lockdown. Those kind of social games are the norm right now. And speaking of which, how this pandemic has affected you as a musician? I mean, every venue is closed. We can get a gig and I don't know. I mean, all venues are closed, man. How has that affected you in particular?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate because I've been doing what I do for a really long time, and so I have like some passive income and stuff. So you know, I can handle like not having work for a little while, but also because I work on most game development is done remotely, or if like I was working at a game studio and the game studio had to close, the physical location had to close because of the pandemic, but we just moved the entire operation to work remotely.
All right. And
so, you know, we're just working in Slack or whatever to having meetings online to finish the project and stuff. So yeah, because most of the work that I do is not like a tangible physical thing, or like come to a place and interact with people. A lot of it is I'm by myself working. So it's honestly not that, like, the work element is not that different from what it would normally be. There were like delays for some of my projects got pushed back and took time off because they had to like I was working on a movie and they had to take some time off to figure out how to continue working in a way that was safe. But for the most part, I've been able to work. It's just everything else that's different. Like all the, you know, social stuff, like not really being able to hang out with people too much. Like, so, and I've had to like try to take up some new interests and hobbies to like not go crazy.
Before the pandemic, were you performing live and stuff, or are you just concentrating on composing?
I performed live for about 7 years, probably from like 2007 to 2014 or so. And it never really clicked for me. Like I never really enjoyed it that much. Like I didn't dislike it. It was always really nice. Like when you were done with a show, like interacting with the crowd and having your friends there, all that kind of stuff was awesome. But I think it was just, I wasn't doing it frequently enough to like build up the muscles for it. Like, you know, you practice and then you do a show every week or a couple of days or something, and you just get into a routine. I never did that. It was always like doing a show every couple of months or something like that. And so every time I had to do a show, I had to stop what I was doing. I had to stop working on everything else and just focus on doing a show. So I always felt like it was a lot of effort. Yeah. It was a lot of work to just like, you spend like 20, 30 hours preparing for a show that lasts like an hour. and then it's over.
Yeah, interfere with your workflow, no?
Yeah, it felt like a waste of time. I mean, I hate to say that it was a waste of time, because it wasn't a waste of time, but it didn't feel like a very efficient way to use my time. And so I sort of lost interest in doing live performances.
Oh, okay. And what is your background with music? I mean, did you study at a conservatory? Did you learn from friends? How was your first closing? I mean, with music.
Yeah. It was a little bit of both. I grew up in a musical family, so I was around it, but I was focused on visual art, graphic design, and stuff. But then I got into playing guitar when I was in high school, and I took guitar lessons, and I went to school for graphic design, but then I dropped out, and I had a band with some friends, and we just like jam and stuff.
Jam.
Play guitar. I definitely learned a lot from that. But I started writing music, basically. I started writing band music, like with guitars, and then I got into chiptunes. I got into video game sounds and stuff. And the first like couple of albums I wrote were all chiptune music with like kind of like prog rock or like almost like metal inspired arrangements and acoustic drum samples. And I decided to go to music school, and that's what I brought to the interview. Like, here's the music I've written. I'm not a great like performing musician. Like, they asked me to sight read music, and I'm not like, I can read music, but really slowly. So I'm like trying to play along with them, and I'm like, it's like they're playing at like 120 beats per minute, and I'm playing at like 15. But I had a couple of albums of music, and I guess that's how I got into Berklee College of Music, which is where I went.
Berklee College of Music, for those who don't know, it's a very, very famous music school for jazz college. I mean,
yeah,
it's very big. I didn't know you went to Berklee, mate. That's awesome. I'm also I call myself an amateur musician. I play the piano, and
cool.
I have composed like 1 or 2 chiptunes as well. I've been studying during the pandemic. I've studied composition, and I've been making my first songs and all of that, and all of my work, it's inspired by you, mate. I like I said at the beginning, I'm a big fan of your work, and actually I made an arrangement of one of your songs from FEZ.
No way.
Beacon.
It's Beacon, you said?
Yeah, Beacon. I made an arrangement for piano. Yeah,
cool.
It's in my YouTube
I would love
channel.
to hear it.
Oh, that would be the dream, man. That would be the dream.
Yeah, send it to me. I'll check it out.
Thank
Beacon,
you.
That's is Beacon the one that I don't even remember. Is Beacon the one that plays at the lighthouse area with the dock? Yeah. So I wrote that when I was drunk. I was hanging out with my roommate in college, and I was just playing his piano or his keyboard, and I think I was trying to play. I don't know what I was doing, but I might have been trying to play the same chord up and down an octave, and I messed it up. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." same root note, different chord. That's kind of where that came from.
I've always tried to analyze it, and I can't, man. It's in like C minor, C sharp minor, and C sharp major at the same time. Can you?
Yeah, it starts on a. I don't know what key it is. If it was C sharp, then it starts on a minor 11 chord, and then it goes up to a C sharp major.
Yeah.
Maybe like a major 9 chord or something like that. But the melody It's ambiguous. Yeah. The beginning of the melody is it could be either Dorian or Mixolydian.
Oh.
And Dorian is minor and Mixolydian is major.
Yeah. So
it works in both of those chords. Because they have the same.
It's an amazing piece. It's my favorite from that album, and Nocturne. Nocturne, it's
cool.
Also amazing. I love that the I think it's also C sharp minor 9. I think it starts with.
Yeah, it starts with a minor chord, and then it goes up to the major third as the bass note. Yeah, that one. That's the oldest. Yeah. That's the oldest piece of music in FEZ.
Really?
I wrote that when I was probably like 17 or 18.
Try to play it right now.
Go for it.
No. It's.
Yeah.
And then goes to an F.
Yeah, it goes to the major third, which is weird, but works. I don't know. That's one of the oldest pieces of music I wrote, and a lot of the music in FEZ is music that I just wrote whenever, and I just saved it and didn't know what to do with it. And then when FEZ came along, I went back and listened to all the stuff I'd written and tried to figure out like if any of it could work in the game. Yeah, and that was one of those pieces. Yeah. So I mean, that was like, that was way before Berkeley. I wrote that probably when I was like 17 or 18 or something.
Nice. And do you have any favorite like song from FEZ? Like, do you say this one it's my favorite?
I mean, Beacon is definitely up there. I think that might be the best one I did on FEZ. It's pretty good. Nature, I really like Nature.
Oh, Nature. Flow is amazing as well, like with the marimbas and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like I don't know. It's just like I was improvising in that one, and I like how I just kind of improvised it, and it kind of worked. There was sort of a thematic idea with it, which was like the first half of the song is during the day, and it's like it's like very like all the animals are hiding and they're like peeping out and stuff. That was the idea, and so the music is very like it's like very like unsure of itself, and then all of a sudden it goes into this like almost like a ritual dance. So I was like thinking like, okay, at night all the animals come out and they like dance around the fire. And that's sort of why the song is the way that it is. So yeah, I mean, those are pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff on there that I like. Yeah, I don't know. Those are the two that I think of.
It's one of my favorite albums ever. It always pops out in my yearly revision of my Apple Music. It always comes out last the most played album in my year.
Sweet. Thanks for the pennies on the dollar.
Okay, glad I can help, man.
Awesome.
Let me read my chat.
Sure.
Dicen that I sound nervous. I'm a bit nervous.
That's okay. I get it.
This interview is Pablo's Christmas gift. Yeah, in a sense it is. And they say show him your music. Yeah, and that was never the intention of this interview, but I'm sort of a amateur musician myself.
Cool.
I've studied piano like 6 years by now, and I've always I studied economics at the college, but music was always like a sort of passion of mine. I love hearing music, playing music covers, now writing my music. I'm not that good. I have to admit, but you gotta start from somewhere. I mean, you gotta start from somewhere.
It's always impossible to know what that means, because some people say they're not that good and they're amazing, and other people say they're not that good and they're terrible. It's like you don't really know until you hear the music.
Yeah, and it's art, man. It's on the eye's beholder, no? I mean, but
for sure.
If you could give an advice to someone trying to make it into music, like with a band or like composing chiptunes, how would you give him an advice? Which one would it be?
It's always hard to give advice, because
I know
the advice that would work for me wouldn't necessarily work for anybody else, but it might work for somebody who's similar to me in the way that I am. I really need to follow my like intuition, and I need to feel like what I'm doing is authentic. And so that's always been the driving force in like the choices that I make. Like I always just tried to lean into what I thought was the coolest thing and the thing that I was the most interested in. And so, but I also always knew that I had some sort of ability for music. If you don't feel like you have that, I mean, it would be a very different experience to try to become a game composer, for instance. That would be a much different kind of journey that you would have to take. So all I can speak to is like my experience, which was that I got into music late, but I found that I could write music that I liked, even though I didn't have I didn't really have a lot of training. I was just excited about the possibilities of writing music. I was always around music growing up, but I just didn't really write any. And then once I had some tools where I could do it, first it was guitar, and then it was the computer. Specifically, I got some like guitar tab software for doing like guitar tablature, and it had MIDI in it, so I could I didn't have to just use it for guitar. I could actually like write music inside of this program that's not really designed for that. It's not like Ableton or something. It's like, it was a very clunky piece of software, like not very
not very professional.
I mean? Yeah, exactly. But once I realized that I could write music that I didn't have to be able to play, like I don't have to actually play this part, so I can make it as complicated and crazy as I want it to be. I mean, that sort of set me free to just experiment. And in the beginning, a lot of my music is ridiculous because I'm just messing around and just experimenting. I'm like, what if I just like put 900 notes? Like, what would that sound like? It's just a lot of that. And then over time, you start to develop a style and you start to refine it a little bit. And maybe you're like, I don't need to do this all the time. I don't need to always be like, people would call it masturbating, musical masturbation. You don't need to do that all the time. Like you can pick and choose when to do that to make it more effective. And but yeah, I mean, as far as like the beginning, I would say follow your intuition and what really excites you. That's what I did as far as like, but that was based on knowing that I had an ability at music. Like it wasn't like, oh, this, like, I'm not that good and I'm going to do it anyway kind of thing. It's like, I felt like I had some kind of ability for it, and it excited me when I would make stuff. So there was a feedback loop happening there. And I know a lot of composers and musicians who don't have that, or they have a different loop, even really talented ones who think everything they make is terrible. That's, maybe that's just your personality. I don't know, but that was, or maybe that's something that's like a hurdle that some people need to get over, but that was never me.
Yeah.
But then as I was doing it for a longer period of time, I tried to put myself in a lot of different situations, like new situations, and push myself. I'm not like a super social person. I'm not super outgoing. I don't really like going to parties, but I would go to like everything, and I would force myself to meet new people and, just try to be in the middle of things and put myself in a position to succeed, because like just to put myself in a position where people knew who I was, that I existed at all.
Yeah.
And between going to things in person, like going to events and things, and just being active on the internet, you know, I was always sharing my music. I was always excited to hear what people would say, even if it was negative. I always found it really kind of it was exciting. Because I think after I got some initial positive feedback from people that, oh, this is really cool, I was like, I had enough confidence that I could accept negative feedback. And so I started to get used to getting negative feedback too. And it was interesting to me to see how one person could explain why they loved it and another person could explain why they hated it. And I think that just helped me to get past the fear of people not liking the work that I was putting out. And it made it easier for me to release music. And so I became very comfortable releasing all of my music. So a large majority of the things I've made, I've actually released, which is unusual I think it's not always the case that people do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to cope with bad feedback sometimes. I have that problem with the YouTube channel and my music. I take it pretty hard when someone says my music sucks or my new video sucks. I mean, I take it pretty hard. Can you give me an advice to not take it that hard? It's just building confidence, putting more effort.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say you're never going to make everybody happy. There's always going to be somebody who doesn't like what you're doing. And as long as there's somebody who does like it, then you know that you're doing something right, you know, like it's not totally hopeless.
It's like building confidence, like you said, and releasing it's like practice. Like when you play an instrument, let's say piano, guitar, drums, whatever, practice. You gotta sit on your piano and practice 2, 3, 4 hours, depending on what level you're trying to achieving. And I think it's the same. If you're just an amateur musician and you compose 1 or 2 songs, that's fine. But if you want to make it big, you have to produce, make songs, another and another. Even if someone's are not that good, you gotta make and you gotta produce. You gotta keep practicing.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make a career out of making music, you have to be willing to suck.
Yeah,
there's just no other way around it. It's just not going to be easy all the time. But you have to really like it too. You have to enjoy it for the most part, even though it's not always going to be fun. But it should be more fun than not fun, you know.
Yeah, you gotta like it. What you're doing, first and foremost, the first person you gotta please it's yourself. If you don't please yourself, you're doomed. That's how I see it. Let me check the chat. They're saying give those likes. They say it hurts to grow. Yeah, it's a painful process, but
growing pains.
Growing pains.
Yeah.
But do you have any future projects that you can talk about at the time?
Any what? Sorry.
Any future projects that you're working on?
Oh, future projects. What can I actually talk about? I can't. There's a lot of stuff I'm working on that I can't really talk about. I'm working on some cool stuff that I'm excited about. I mean, I'm working on this game Solar Ash, which is the follow-up to Hyperlight Drifter.
Oof.
And we've been working on that for a long time, like 4 years, I think. 4 years or so. It's coming along. It's a really big project.
That's something most people don't know, that video game production, it's a very, very lengthy project. People think it's like, I wanna make a video game, and they think it's like poke your computer and a video game is done. And no. Yeah. It's a very, very lengthy project.
It depends what you're trying to do. I mean, there are independent developers who work in small teams who thrive in situations where they can make a game in like 6 months or less. I've worked on some games like that. And it's amazing to be able to do that. But then there are games that just take way longer. FEZ took like 7 years or something. Yeah. It took a long time. This game will take probably 5 years, if not longer. Trying to think. Hyperlight Drifter took a while too. That took 4 years. So yeah, you have an ideal sort of vision of how long the game is going to take. And there's some like thing that people say where however long you think it's going to take twice as long. In games, it's usually more. It's like 3 or 4 times. Because there's just so many things that can go wrong. Especially, you have to, if you want to make a game that you can actually finish in a short period of time, you have to know exactly what the game is up front. And you have to and then you have to test the game, and it has to be exactly what you thought it was, and that people really like it and it works. And for all of those things to come true it doesn't always happen that way. So it's very complicated. Games are very complicated to make because of all the technology. And also it creates all these different probabilities and possibilities and things that can go wrong. What I would say is that it's been a really interesting experience, and it's probably the biggest game I've ever worked on, and so I've learned a lot of new stuff. And there's been lots of ups and downs for sure.
Like in every project.
Usually the projects that they're usually projects that are really difficult. It's nice if you can at least look back and be proud of it and be like, oh, I'm really proud of the work that we did, even though it almost it was brutal and it was really difficult. And hopefully that will be the case. I think that will be the case here, as it was on Under the Silver Lake, which is a movie I scored. Mm-hmm. That was the hardest project I ever did. It was a year and a half, and I wrote music for a 50-piece orchestra. Wow. And it was insanely hard. I'd never done anything like that before. So it was a really steep learning curve, trying to figure out how to do that. It was very hard.
Yeah, I know. And speaking of which, do you find easier working on video games or TV or movies, or it's very similar? How do they compare with each other?
It really depends on the project and the people and what's asked of you, what's expected of you. It depends on all of those things. Because in some ways, television and movies can be easier in the sense that if you're working with somebody who has a really strong vision and they give you a really strong guidelines for how to succeed, like maybe they're using a temp score, music from other films and stuff that they've used to cut the movie or the show together. And if you have an aptitude, a skill for taking that and making it into something else that works, that they like, then that can be good. That can be a good experience. It really depends a lot on personalities too. It depends on how easygoing they are, how specific they are, how specific they get about the kinds of things that they're looking for versus how well you can deliver those things. It's really hard to know. I mean, if a game is really if it's a game and it's a really small project, or even of short film or something, like I pretty much know going into it that those are going to be easier because it's just less work. So even if it's hard work, it'll be over soon. So it's not as big of a deal. It's when it's a movie or if it was a season of a television show or a game that's, supposed to take 5 to 10 hours to play through, like, that's going to take a long time to achieve. And so the likelihood that that's going to be really challenging is pretty high.
Oh, right. And I've always had this question for my guests, and it's about your alias or your nickname, Disasterpiece. Where does it come from? What does it mean? Does it mean something? I've always been curious.
So I must have been like 18, and I wanted to start a band, but I didn't really have anybody to start a band with. So I always did this thing since I was little. I would come up with a name for something, like a fictional entity, like a company or something. I would make a name up. And then I would do all the branding. I would make logos and stuff. And when I was little, I would draw them. And I got older, I would make them on the computer. And so I came up with the name, and I thought it was cool. And I just started making logos and stuff like that. And so there's a bunch of early logos of Disasterpiece that have never seen the light of day. Back when I imagined that it would be like a new metal band. And I always like plays on words too. Like, so Disasterpiece is in English, it's a play on masterpiece. So, which is like a your greatest work of art or something. But then disaster, and then I changed piece later. A little later, I changed piece, P-I-E-C-E. I changed it to P-E-A-C-E, which is like,
the peace.
Peace way. Yeah, like peace and love. So disaster and peace are like, they don't really go together. They're kind of opposites. So I was intrigued by that, I guess. And it just kind of stuck with me. I ran with it when I was younger. When I was really young, I ran with it, and I never felt like it was. I never felt like I outgrew it, where I got sick of it or thought that it was lame. So in a way, I feel like I got lucky that I picked something that wasn't really stupid. It was like abstract enough that I could accept it and live with it forever. And I think also having the same name, keeping the same name is a good. I mean, it's not really why I did it, but it's good if you're thinking about it from like a marketing strategy or something like that. Like, having the same name for a long time is really good because it makes it really easy for people to remember who you are. It builds your name recognition or whatever. I have like friends who are musicians who have like 30 different aliases, like 30 different bands and projects, which is really fun, but you basically stay anonymous forever because nobody knows what to call you. So it's nice to have a name that people can refer to you as, that's memorable. Like, because your actual name is not as, you'd have to be really, really special to people be like, oh yeah, just this guy's name, that I remember him, Tom Jones or whatever.
Yeah, I know. I'm always interested in the background stories of my guests' nicknames, and in your case, it was I've been curious since always. Let me check my chat. They're pretty silent. I think they're paying attention, so that's fine.
Or I put them all to sleep.
Yeah. Nah. So you said you started playing guitar like you were in high school, in college. Do you have any like prime instrument, like the piano or the guitar? Or
these days it's the piano pretty much. I don't really play the guitar as much as I used to. For a long time, it was guitar. That was at Berkeley, they called it your principal instrument. And it was the instrument that you had to play to get into the college. And then it was the instrument that you took lessons at the college. You took lessons studying. So yeah, for the first 5, 6, 7 years of my music life, that was what I focused on. And then I got a MIDI keyboard when I was, I don't know, maybe 20 or 21 or something like that. I got a MIDI keyboard, and then I started. I'd always like dabbled on the piano and messed around because we had a piano in my home, and my mother played a little bit of piano. My stepfather played piano. My sister played piano. So I would like mess around a little bit, but as I got older, I actually started to take it more seriously. And by the time I was 26, maybe, I bought a piano, and I've had that piano ever since, the last 8 years or so. And so piano has basically become my way of,
of composing.
Making music. Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, I think awesome. And how do you cope, or how does it feel to have like an art block? I mean, like you gotta compose and you're blocked, and how do you go for a walk, play a video game, listen to some music? How do you cope with it?
Yeah, I usually take a break. I do have some tools, but I don't really use them that often. Like I have a deck of cards called Oblique Strategies that Brian Eno created, and they have a bunch of ideas on them about what to do next when you're stuck. And they're usually pretty abstract ideas, so you can take them in a lot of different directions. And I like little games like that. Sometimes I'll use those games to start something. Like I have some cards that have the 12 notes on them, and I'll shuffle them up, and I'll just pick out a couple, and I'll just play them and see what they sound like. And sometimes that'll be the start of something, like a start of an idea. But usually when I get stuck, I don't usually get stuck once I start. What happens usually once I've started is I get unhappy. That's usually what happens. Like I don't like what I'm doing or something, and then sometimes I will just power through it and just keep trying to make it better until I calm myself down, or I'll have to step away and revisit it later. And either one of those usually will work out for me.
Okay. And my chat asks, what stage of your professional life has been a great challenge? How has been the most challenging project that you ever got? This one you have to compose like for a 15 band or?
Yeah, it's Under the Silver Lake, the second movie that I did with David Robert Mitchell, who we did It Follows together. The second movie, it's a film noir, and he wanted me to write an orchestral score. Oof. And I hadn't done much of that, so it was a really difficult learning experience for me. And not only that, I had to write a bunch of other kinds of music for the film. There's this like 10-minute sequence where this old man is playing piano, and he's playing like a medley of all these different popular songs. He plays like Ozzy Osbourne, Crazy Train. He plays like the theme song to the television show Cheers. He plays Backstreet Boys. He plays La Bamba. He plays he plays Pinball Wizard. It goes all these different places, and we needed to make all of that work together, and the actors needed to be able to do what they do as well. It was extremely difficult. It was extremely difficult to do that scene. Between that and I had to write a pop song for the movie. I had to do a string, like a quartet type arrangement, plus like 90 minutes of orchestral music with like 50, like a huge orchestra. And I had never done anything like that before. So it was extremely hard, but I had a lot of help. Actually, the composer from David's first movie came on board at the suggestion of David. He came on board and he helped me to figure out all the things that we needed to do to actually make it work. So he was the score producer for the film. He helped put together a team of orchestrators to take the music I'd written and prepare it to be played by an orchestra, which involves music notation, writing all the parts out. And he hired a librarian to prepare all the paperwork, all the parts for all of the musicians. There was like thousands of pages of
sheet music
notation that had to be printed out. Yeah. Hired a conductor, a contractor, orchestral contractor who hires all of the musicians because there are so many. Book a studio, all that kind of stuff. Figure out the budget, figure out how much all this is going to cost. It was very complicated, and there was a lot of stuff that I had no experience doing. So it was great having him because I got to focus on just writing the music and making it sound the way that I wanted it to. And then took that, brought it to the stage, recorded all of it. Recorded the things that we could replace because some of it was too sound design oriented or too specific. Then we took all the recordings and worked with a mixing engineer to mix all of the recorded elements, all the orchestra. And, I was with him through that process, like making choices, and then basically took all that stuff, like, I don't know, 300, 400 gigabytes of audio, and like put it, figure out how to work it back into the score, figure out, okay, here's some sampled orchestra that we can pull out. Here's some that we can use with the recordings to make it even more full. So it worked out because I got to still do all the things that I normally do, but then have this extra help figuring out all the extra stuff. But even that being said, it was extremely difficult because it took so long to write all the music, figure out how to make it sound good, make the director happy. Like it took 1.5 years to do that project. It was really hard, but I'm super proud of the work that we did on it.
I know. And with music and television series, do you get a glimpse of the show like beforehand, or you have to work with just the description from the director or with the script?
Yeah, usually as a composer, you would have a version of the film that's still being worked on, and you would start writing music to that. And usually the director and the editor or music editor would have added music to the film already. That's temp music that you would replace. And actually that's how I started working on movies, so I was used to it, and I like it because it gives me some structure and understanding of what the director's looking for. It's the easiest way to communicate with a director who maybe is not a musician, is let them communicate with music, and then you can communicate back with the things that you write. Yeah, I forgot what the question was.
if you have like a preview version of the film of the TV series, or do you work just with the description from the director or with the script? That was the question.
Right. So sometimes you could write music to the script to kind of start getting a sense of it, start developing a sound. Or I find that the music that you write to a script it can be a great way of establishing the tone or the style, but it almost never will make it into the actual movie because the movie has limited spaces for music, and those spaces, the music needs to be very specific. So it's more of like a sketch. Usually you're sketching something out. So I will do that though, because I like to start to get a sense of it. I'll usually just write some piano. I'll just sketch some piano ideas out. But most of the work is done with the actual footage of the film, like looking at it. If there's temp score, listening to it once or twice with the temp score, and then turning the temp score off and just writing to that. Because that's ultimately what the movie's going to be. So the easiest way to do it is to just try to write directly to it and hope that you figure it out.
Oh, right. That's amazing. I've always wondered how are you on set? Do you work mostly remotely from your home? Do you have a studio, or how is your work process?
Yeah. Let's see. I'll actually show you.
Amazing.
I just work out of my house, and this is my setup. It's super simple. That's all it is. I've had a lot of different setups over the years. When I started, I worked out of my bedroom, and did that for a while, and then I had a dedicated studio. Well, actually, before that, I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I used the second bedroom as a studio. And that's what I have now. That's my setup now. That's the setup that I'm most comfortable with. But I've also had a separate studio that I used to drive to. I didn't like that very much. It was a big studio, and it was impressive, but it was expensive, and I spent a lot of time driving, and I didn't like it being late at night and I'm working and now I have to drive. I was not a fan of that. So, and I've also worked at game studio. Like I worked at a game studio where they let me use the space as my studio also, and that had its own issues. So yeah, ultimately I found that what works best for me is having a really simple setup. That's only the things that I actually really need as far as the basic setup. And then if I want to experiment with something, I can bring it in, I can buy something. So I'm always like, then if I'm not using it anymore, I'll give it away or I'll sell it. So I don't have a ton of gear or anything like that. I just have my little desk there with my laptop and speakers. I have a tiny little second monitor. I have a piano, couple of guitars, and that's about it right now. Although I do really want to get an electric drum kit.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I love those. They're super fun.
Yeah, they're super fun. Like for practice, and you put your headphones and you don't bother the neighbors and stuff.
Yeah, it's a good workout too. yeah,
I know. I don't know. You named Debussy. I don't remember which other composers, but do you have a favorite like band or composer or musician? Do you have like a favorite, like this guy is my favorite musician?
I like a lot of stuff. I can definitely think of like a group for like composers or bands. Like when I think of bands, I think of Deerhoof. They're really cool. I think of the Beatles. I think of Tortoise. I think of King Crimson. I think of like early Tool. Stuff like that. When I think of like, then there's also like singer-songwriters. I really like Joni Mitchell. I'm a really big fan of Joni Mitchell. Composers, I think of like Debussy, Ravel, Steve Reich, Stravinsky, Marconi. Yeah. So there's a lot of different kinds of stuff that I like. I don't really have like a favorite. And then there's a game there's a few game composers that I really like Koji Kondo, obviously.
Of course.
Everybody likes Koji Kondo. I mean, what he did is so amazing and so it was so natural for him to do it, but the effect of it was so brilliant. He just took the music that he really liked, contemporary music, and tried to like recreate it on this very like simple hardware. Yeah. Like a lot of his early stuff, like they're almost like direct quotes from some of the bands that he listened to. But in the process of like taking that music and making it and putting it into this really simple form factor, he almost created like an entirely new style of music by it. Like, yeah. And the whole generation of people who made music for those old consoles, like 80s consoles, like Nintendo and stuff. Just this idea that you could take all these different genres and like jumble them all up into this very minimal like synthesizer format. It's just a very cool thing. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, Koji Kondo, Yasunori Mitsuda, who did the same kind of thing just later. Yeah.
Koji Kondo was so ahead of his time. Like his ideas, like music that you don't get tired of because you're gonna hear it like again and again. So he had to write something that you didn't get tired of quickly, and that sort of mentality. It's still the norm in video game music. Like he was so ahead of his time. Do you have, apart from your music that you professionally work on, do you have like any hobbies, like pastimes? Like, do you play football? I don't know. We mentioned video games. I don't know, any other hobbies or pastimes?
For sure. Yeah, I like a lot of stuff. I like to read. I grew up, when I was growing up, I played ice hockey. And I haven't been able to play lately because of everything going on, but I still really like to play ice hockey. Take walks, ride my bike. When I was a teenager, I played golf because I had two grandfathers who played, and so that was my way of bonding with them. And I started playing golf again recently, just to have something to do. It's nice to hit something. Yeah. I've gone through phases of doing different stuff, like doing yoga. I did yoga for a while. I don't really do yoga anymore. I like movies. I like going out and doing stuff. Yeah. Occasionally I get into like a cooking, like I want to do a bunch of cooking, but it's not that often. But I'll go through phases where I get interested in something and I want to find a way to be creative that's different. Like painting, I'll get into a painting phase, or recently I got really into chess for like a couple months, and now I'm like super burnt out on chess. So it's I don't know. I kind of wander around looking for stuff to like interest me. That's not music from time to time.
That's cool, man. Do you have any? I know you mentioned at the start you like all sorts of media, series, TVs, movies. Do you have or what would you say it's your favorite movie of all time? Do you have like this one?
Favorite movie? Oh man. I don't think there's any way I could possibly answer that with one movie. There's so many good ones.
Like 3, 5, 10.
Even that's hard, but
you can mention.
Let's see.
First one that comes to your mind.
Yeah, a couple are coming to my mind. I mean, I recently rewatched The Fellowship of the Ring, which is I don't know why, but I absolutely love that movie.
Lord of the Rings.
It inspired some of my early music. Like one of my early albums, 8-Bite and the Warring Nations, is basically a love letter to Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien. The Thing, I love The Thing. I'm not a big horror movie buff or person, but I absolutely love that movie. and I only saw it recently, like maybe last year. What else did I really like? I don't know. I like documentaries.
Oh.
I like Werner Herzog. I like Ken Burns. I like. I love Ghibli. Like, I'm a huge Studio Ghibli fan. Porco Rosso is probably my favorite. That's definitely top 5. That's one of my favorite movies ever. Yeah, it's a deep. You know, it's why it's hard, because I've seen so many movies. Like a lot of people, I've seen so many movies at this point, like thousands of movies. So it's hard to like think of all of them and like pick ones out. Like the original Ninja Turtles movie is still really good.
One from the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the first one is awesome.
Yeah,
it's so good. Yeah,
pretty campy, but it's so much fun.
That's why I like it. Yeah. Well, it's so nice when something like that, you can go back to it and still watch it. You can watch it and still think that it's good, because it's a lot of times you have memories you might have memories of a movie when you were a kid or young that were so positive, and then you try to go back and watch it and you're like, oh no, this this is so cheesy. I you know, I'm not the same person anymore, and I can't enjoy this anymore. But not that one. The sequels, though, are just some of the worst movies ever made. They're so bad.
Turtles in Time and Secret of the Ooze.
Secret of the Ooze. Oh, so bad.
They're so bad.
So goofy. And not MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice. They just happened to be playing. That was so... It's campy. It's like Batman from the 60s. Like, the campiness, it's everything. It's sort of like that, but it didn't age well, really.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. And do you have any favorite soundtrack? Being a person that works at movies and video game soundtracks, do you have any favorite video game or movie soundtrack?
Yeah, for sure. Some recent video game soundtracks that I really like. There's a game called Mutazione, which has really good music. It's like an adventure game. There's a game called Machinarium, which has really good music. And then older games, Chrono Cross. Oh. It's probably my all-time favorite. Chrono Trigger. Lots of Koji Kondo music. You know, Mario and Zelda stuff. Metroid. That's a pretty good collection of game stuff. Movies, I mentioned Marcone. I really like Marcone, especially his spaghetti western music.
Yeah.
Bernard Herrmann, which I didn't know his music at all before I worked on Under the Silver Lake. He did a bunch of movies. He did Citizen Kane and Vertigo, Taxi Driver, like all these like noir movies from like the 40s, 50s, and 60s. His music is amazing. It's really, really cool music. Mandalorian has really good music.
Oh, right. The season 2 finale just aired, no?
Yeah, it did, but I didn't watch it yet, so no spoilers.
No spoilers. Me neither. Chat, no spoilers, please. And the chat is asking the real questions. Do you have pets?
Do I have pets? Wow. No, I don't have any pets.
You don't like animals, like doggos?
No, I like animals.
Cats.
I like animals. I lived with a pet for a long time, so now I'm taking a break. Yeah.
It's like ending a relationship. You gotta take a break.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up, man. I don't want to take any of your valuable time. I know you're pretty busy working on projects, writing your own stuff. Do you like, just like a last question, do you like more working on your own music or working like for a commission, like a TV or for a video game? Is it a different process, or is just about the same?
Yeah, it's really different. I think what's nice about commissions is that you can have a very clear goal. It's when I'm writing my own music, I don't always have a super clear goal. Like if I sit down to the piano, I might just be playing whatever. It helps me to like crystallize my ideas when I know what I'm moving towards. So if I do try to make my own material, my own music and stuff, it helps me to have like a concept. And I think that's why I was able to do it when I was like younger and like earlier in my career. I did a bunch of concept albums. Like having concepts like really helped me to write music. And if I don't have a concept, it's pretty hard for me to write anything. It just comes out as like, it's just random and kind of nonsensical. I mean, it's music and it's fine, but I feel like I work better when I know what I'm writing for, like it has a purpose. So it is nice to not have someone, you know, sometimes you work with somebody who's maybe not the greatest. I've worked with a lot of really cool people. So when you're working for yourself, it's a little different. I don't know. It's, you know, it's up to you to direct yourself. And sometimes I don't push myself as hard as I would need to probably to actually finish something. Whereas if you're working on a commission, you don't really have a choice. So it's nice sometimes to have the structure from the outside that you'd have to make for yourself otherwise.
You got to make it yourself. That structure. Exactly. And that's pretty nice. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. Are you working on anything for yourself right now? Anything?
I am. Yeah, I'm doing a couple of things. I have a bunch of music software that I'm planning to release.
Nice.
Over the next couple of years. I've been developing like these tools for like the last 5 or so years. So I have a lot of them and I'm trying to figure out, you know, the best way to do that. I'm prototyping a card game right now.
Nice.
Stuff like that, you know, little things keep me busy. I'm also getting more into figuring out how to take all the stuff I've done, all my experience and my knowledge, and how to share it in the best way.
Yeah, you should make a YouTube channel.
I have a YouTube channel, but it's not like a...
Yeah, you just upload your music, right?
I upload talks, I upload whatever, you know, I'll upload anything. But I don't know, I might like make a book or something like that. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do.
I always watch like music YouTubers. I don't know if you know them, like Adam Neely. There's a Spanish one.
I went to school with Adam Neely.
Really?
He was a friend of my sister's. Yeah, I met him like once or twice.
Nice. I didn't know that.
I doubt he remembers me.
He went to Berkeley too.
Yeah, he went to Berkeley.
Yeah. And I mean, there's
do you know Ben Levin too? His videos are really cool.
No, I haven't watched him.
Look up Ben Levin. His videos are awesome.
Yeah.
He also went to Berkeley.
There's a Spanish one. What's his name? I forgot. But there are like musicians that have a YouTube channel and talk about theory, talk about composition.
Yeah.
They analyze. You should consider making something like that. That would be amazing.
That's a cool idea. I'll think about it.
That would be awesome. I
used to have this series I used to do. It's called Music Morsels, and I would like take a song and I would find something, like I would find these interesting little techniques that people came up with, and I would do a little piece about it. Like there's this technique that you'll hear sometimes where a song just starts. There's no drums. It's maybe a guitar part or something. And so you think that you know where the downbeat is.
No.
But then the drums come in, and the drums come in a different spot. and so suddenly you realize that the downbeat is somewhere else, and so you have this like moment where your brain just kind of gets like confused. But it's cool. It's like a gotcha. It's like a haha, I tricked you. There's a Led Zeppelin song that does it. I think it's Mountain Song maybe, and there's a Pyramid Song by Radiohead. I think does it too. Pyramid Song has that really weird drum entrance, and you're like, what the hell? And then you're like, oh, okay, I understand now.
And it's actually just in 4/4. Pyramid Song is just in 4/4. But like,
but the way it comes in is like, what the heck is that?
Radiohead, it's one of my favorite bands.
I think over the years, like just between Adam Neely and some of the other YouTubers, like they cover like almost every music technique that I know of. So it's like I don't feel like there's a whole lot that I would have to come up with my own thing that is unique, that is worth doing, because I wouldn't want to like do the same stuff, you know? Like I'm not going to do like videos about like 7 against 5 or whatever.
7 against 11.
Yeah, 7-Eleven. Yeah.
Exactly. There's a lot of YouTube channels about music theory, and they have a pretty big following. There's Adam Neely. There's David Bennett Piano, amazing musician as well.
Yeah. There's
Rick Beato.
Rick Beato. Do you know the British composer? I can't remember his name. He has a good channel. He's like a classical.
The guy with the glasses. Yeah. I like.
Yeah, his channel's great.
Yeah.
And Nare Soul is really cool too. Do you know her?
Nare Soul, yeah.
Yeah, her channel's cool too. The way she like deconstructs styles on the piano is like amazing. It's amazing.
Particular classical music. She's a classical pianist. She's amazing.
Yeah, really, really cool.
Yeah, but with that bombshell, I think it's time to let Rich go. Really, mate, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm really, really, really a big fan of yours. It's an honor that you accepted this interview. And,
my pleasure, man.
Something you want to add to the end of this interview?
Stay safe. Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad.
I don't know.
Have a happy New Year.
Yeah, thanks for chatting. It was fun.
No, it was amazing. Have a very Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. Have a very nice year. And we have our contact. And if you ever want to come back, it would be my pleasure to talk about another project, to talk about something you're working on, everything.
Yeah, for sure. Send me some of that music that you're working on. Yeah, check it out.
Sure. I'll send you an email and with the link.
Cool.
Thanks, mate.
All right.
You can disconnect. I say goodbye to my chat, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot, mate. See ya.
Take care, Pablo. Bye.
Thanks, mate. It's been awesome. Pues ese fue, y ya estamos en español, ya hicimos así la transición. Pues ese fue el grande y poderoso Rich Vreeland, Disasterpiece, uno de mis héroes. Sí, como decían hace ratito, es mi regalo de Navidad, uno de mis héroes. Y lo pudimos entrevistar, súper buena onda, súper alivianado, súper cool. Y pues espero les haya gustado esta entrevista. A ver si se las puedo traducir aquí en vía YouTube. Y pues si no, pues desgraciadamente va a estar así en inglés. Y pues mi inglés medio buchereado, mi inglés de Marta de baile. Pero pues gran tipo, súper hablador. Le encanta platicar. Y qué neta, qué placer haberlo conocido, aunque sea así a la distancia. Es un tipazo. Y pues vayan a escuchar su música en Apple Music, en Spotify, en todos lados está. Búsquenlo así como Disasterpiece, como lo ven en pantalla, y disfruten de su música. Quédense en casa. sigan disfrutando de su fin de semana, que justo arranca ahora. Y pues vamos para la semana de las Navidades. Y pues ahí les debo un stream de videojuegos, porque pues hoy se sustituyó por este Talks. Pero pues muchas gracias a los que nos acompañaron. Al buen Tora, a Lu, estuvo también la Isabel, ¿quién más? Estuvo el gran César Casimiro también haciendo preguntas. El buen Walter, que dice que no entendía inglés, pero pues ya ni modo. Y pues a todos y obviamente pues al gran Rich, que nos haya aceptado la entrevista. La neta pues habla de su humildad y del gran sujeto que es. No solo súper talentoso, súper sencillo y súper humilde también al aceptarme una entrevista a un güey así todo random del internet. Pero pues yo creo que con eso terminamos el episodio de hoy. Muchas gracias a los que nos acompañaron. Ese fue el gran Rich Vreeland, Disasterpiece, músico, compositor de videojuegos y películas y series. Y pues sin nada más que agregar, nos vemos en la próxima. LoserCast out. Peace. Gracias, banda.